Hey everyone, ready for another deep dive. Today we're taking on something pretty incredible, ultramarathons.
Ultramarathons.
These races go so far beyond the typical marathon distance.
Yeah,
We're talking 50,
100.
even more miles.
Yeah.
It's mind-boggling to think about. So the big question we're tackling today is, are we as humans even meant to run these crazy distances? I mean,
Right.
our body's actually built for it. We've got a ton of research to dig through.
Oh, yeah,
Some crazy stories too.
definitely. And you know what's interesting? It seems like we actually might be hardwired for this.
Really?
It's not just some modern extreme sport. The roots of ultra running could go way back to our evolutionary past.
Okay, now that's a hook. Take us back in time. What are we talking about here?
Well, there's this theory called the endurance running hypothesis. It basically says that early humans, way back on the African savanna, evolved to run long distances as a way to hunt prey. Picture this. Our ancestors chasing down antelopes under the scorching sun for hours.
Oh, like a prehistoric marathon.
More like an ultramarathon, actually. And the theory says that humans had a serious advantage in that environment. We sweat to cool down, which is way more efficient than panting, which is what a lot of animals do.
That makes sense.
So we could basically run our prey into exhaustion.
So we were like the original ultramarathoners.
It's wild.
That is wild.
And this persistence hunting, that's what it's called, might have been a key factor in our evolution, shaping us into the endurance runners we are today.
Okay, that makes sense from a survival standpoint, back in the day.
Yeah.
But obviously these days, we're not exactly chasing down antelopes for dinner.
No, we are not.
So what makes someone in the modern world decide to run, say, 100 miles? That's a whole other level of motivation.
Right. And it's not just about physical capability.
It's actually mental, too.
Oh, yeah, it's huge. What makes modern ultra running so fascinating is the mental and emotional aspect.
Yeah.
These races demand this unique blend of physical and mental strength, pushing runners way beyond what most people think is even possible.
Okay, so let's break it down. Besides the whole sweating thing, what physical adaptations make humans good long-distance runners?
Well, we have some serious evolutionary advantages. Starting with bipedalism, our ability to walk and run on two legs.
Right.
Super efficient.
Okay.
And it frees up our hands.
Which would have been essential back then.
Oh, absolutely. For carrying spears, tools, you name it.
Makes sense.
Okay. What else? We also have incredibly elastic tendons, especially the Achilles tendon. It's like a spring that stores and releases energy with every stride.
Oh, interesting. So it's all about efficiency.
Exactly. And then there's muscle composition.
Uh-huh.
We have a high percentage of slow-twitch muscle fibers. They resist fatigue and are perfect for sustained effort over long distances. Think of them as the marathon runners of the muscle world, as opposed to the fast-twitch fibers that power, say, sprinters.
Okay, I'm starting to see how all those adaptations come in handy for these insane distances.
Yeah.
But we got to talk about the elephant in the room, the mental side of things.
Oh, yeah, the mental side.
Because running 100 miles, that's
Oh, it's huge.
more than just physical. Right.
Absolutely. In fact, the mental aspect might be even more important than the physical.
Really?
Yeah, you're pushing your body to its absolute limit, battling fatigue, muscle soreness, even sleep deprivation in some cases. And it's the mental fortitude that often makes the difference between finishing and giving up.
Gotta get tough.
Many ultra runners talk about hitting this wall.
Oh, yeah.
During these races, they experience extreme doubt, fatigue, some even despair.
Wow.
Getting past those dark patches,
Yeah.
it's a real testament to their mental resilience.
It sounds like a serious emotional roller coaster. I know our sources mentioned something called flow state.
Right.
What is that exactly? And is that part of this mental game?
It definitely is. Flow state is that feeling of being totally absorbed in an activity. You lose track of time, even pain sometimes.
Right.
Some runners even experience a kind of euphoria.
Like the runner's high.
Exactly. But imagine maintaining that state for hours or even days on end.
Wow, that sounds almost meditative.
It is, in a way. It takes incredible focus and the ability to quiet those inner voices of doubt and discomfort.
This is fascinating. But
Yeah.
we've been focusing on what makes people capable of these distances.
Right.
What makes someone actually want to put themselves through this?
That's where things get really interesting. We're not just talking about survival anymore. There's something about pushing your own boundaries, testing your limits, that draws people to ultra running. It's a journey of self-discovery as much as a physical feat.
So we've got this evolutionary foundation for endurance running and this drive to push limits. But there's a flip side to all of this, right? It can't all be sunshine and runner's highs.
True, there are definitely downsides.
Yeah.
While the rewards are immense, you have to be aware of the risks involved in pushing your body to such extremes.
Right. It's important to be realistic about that.
Absolutely. We need to have an honest conversation about that, too.
Absolutely. So what are some of the potential downsides of ultra running that our listeners should be aware of?
Well, for starters, injuries are really common,
Yeah.
even amongst seasoned runners.
Okay.
We're talking stress fractures, tendinitis, ligament strains, the kind of things that can sideline you for weeks, even months.
I can imagine all that repetitive impact on your joints and muscles.
Exactly. And then there's the less common but more serious risks like rhabdomyolysis, which we mentioned earlier.
Right.
It's a condition where muscle tissue actually breaks down
Wow.
and it releases harmful substances into the bloodstream. It can lead to kidney damage and other complications if it's not treated properly.
Okay, so definitely not something to take lightly. What can runners do to kind of minimize these risks?
Well, training the right way is key.
Yeah.
Gradually increasing mileage and intensity over time rather than jumping into extreme distances too quickly.
So no weekend warrior stuff.
No, not a good idea.
Yeah.
And listening to your body.
Rest is important.
Taking rest days when you need them. And of course, proper footwear and running form can make a world of difference.
So it's about finding that balance between pushing yourself and being smart about it.
Exactly. It's not about just throwing caution to the wind. It's about respecting your body's limits and understanding that pushing too hard too soon can backfire.
That makes sense. Now, we talked about the risks, but I'm curious about the flip side. What are the rewards that make people keep coming back to ultramarathons despite these challenges? What makes it so compelling?
That's a great question, and I think it gets at the deeper motivations behind ultra running. For a lot of folks, it's not about the physical challenge alone.
Yeah.
It's about that mental and emotional journey, testing their limits, pushing past what they thought was possible, and finding a strength and resilience they didn't even know they had.
Sounds like a powerful form of self-discovery.
It really is. Imagine crossing that finish line, knowing you've pushed your body and mind further than you ever thought you could. That feeling of accomplishment is immense, and it can have this ripple effect on other areas of your life, too.
It's like a metaphor for overcoming challenges in general.
Exactly. And then there's the community. Ultra runners are a special bunch. They share this understanding of the challenges and rewards that come with the sport.
Like that.
And the camaraderie and support within the community are unbelievable.
So it's not just about the individual journey. It's about a shared experience.
Totally. The bonds you forge out on the trail are incredibly strong. These are people who have seen each other at their most vulnerable, who've pushed each other to keep going when things get tough.
Wow.
That shared experience creates this really deep connection.
That's amazing. You know, we talked about flow state earlier. Can you talk a bit more about how that plays into the ultra running experience? Our sources mentioned something about it being almost spiritual for some people.
You're right, there is a spiritual aspect to it for some. For a lot of ultra runners, achieving and maintaining that flow state is a central part of the experience.
Okay.
They describe it as this feeling of being completely present in the moment.
Like being in the zone.
Exactly. The outside world fades away. And they're just focused on the rhythm of their stride, the beauty of the surroundings.
So it's kind of a form of moving meditation.
It really is. It's about quieting the mind, letting go of distractions, and finding a sense of peace and clarity in the middle of all the exertion.
I can see how that would be appealing, especially in today's crazy busy world. It's like finding this sanctuary within yourself.
Exactly. And for some people, that connection with nature, that inner peace, it becomes almost spiritual. It's about connecting with something bigger than themselves, tapping into this primal instinct, a connection to the earth and their own bodies.
Wow. It's incredible how something so physically demanding can lead to these profound mental and emotional insights.
Isn't it?
It really challenges how we think about what's possible for both our bodies and our minds.
It does. It reminds us that we're capable of so much more than we often give ourselves credit for.
Absolutely. Well, before we get too philosophical here, I think we should take a moment to recap what we've learned so far. We've covered a lot, from the evolutionary origins of running to the demands of ultramarathons, both physical and mental.
Yeah.
But I think there's more to explore, don't you think? Let's continue our deep dive after a quick break. Let's continue our deep dive after a quick break. And I'm still kind of reeling from that last conversation about what our bodies can actually handle.
It is pretty incredible.
It's amazing to think about how evolution is tied into all of this.
Right, but we need to get back at the potential downsides, especially for anyone listening who's thinking about trying it.
Oh, absolutely. We have to be realistic about the risks. It's not just about pushing limits.
Right.
It's about respecting them too. So what are some things people should be aware of?
Well, like we talked about before, injuries are common, even for experienced runners.
Okay.
Stress fractures, tendinitis, ligament strains, those can sideline you for weeks,
Yeah,
even months.
that makes sense. Pounding the pavement for that long,
Yeah,
it's got to take a toll, even with the best preparation.
for sure. And then there are the less common but more serious risks like rhabdomyolysis. We mentioned that
Right.
earlier. That's when muscle tissue actually breaks down and releases harmful substances into the bloodstream.
Right.
And it can lead to kidney damage and other serious complications if it's not treated quickly.
Okay, so not something to mess around with.
Yeah.
What can runners do to try to minimize these risks?
Well, proper training is key.
Okay.
You want to gradually increase your mileage and intensity over time. Don't jump into those extreme distances too fast.
Take it slow.
Yeah, take it slow. Listening to your body is so important too. Take rest days when you need them. And of course, having the right shoes and good running form can make a big difference.
It seems like finding that balance between pushing yourself and being smart about it.
Exactly. It's not about just ignoring all caution. It's about respecting your body's limits
Yeah.
and knowing that if you push too hard too soon, it can really backfire.
It makes a lot of sense. We talked about the risks, but I'm also curious about the other side of the coin.
Mhm.
What are the rewards that keep people coming back to ultramarathons even with these challenges? What is it about the experience that's so compelling?
That's a fantastic question. I think it speaks to the deeper motivations behind ultra running. For a lot of people, it's not just about the physical challenge, it's
Yeah.
about that mental and emotional journey.
Right.
Testing their limits, pushing beyond what they thought was possible, and finding a strength, a resilience they didn't even know they had.
It almost sounds like a powerful form of self-discovery.
It is. It really is. Just imagine crossing that finish line, knowing you pushed your body and mind further than you ever thought you could. That sense of accomplishment.
Wow.
It's huge. And it can impact other parts of your life, too.
It's like a metaphor for overcoming challenges.
Exactly. And then there's the community.
Yeah, the community.
Ultra runners are a different breed. They share this deep understanding of the challenges and rewards of the sport.
Right.
And the camaraderie and support within the community are just amazing.
So it's not just an individual journey then, it's a shared experience.
Totally. Those bonds that you forge out on the trail are strong. These are people who have seen each other at their worst, their most vulnerable. They pushed each other to keep going when things got really tough.
Wow.
And that shared experience, that creates this really, really deep connection.
That's inspiring. You know, we keep mentioning flow state. Can you talk more about how that plays into the ultra running experience? I know our sources mentioned something about it almost being spiritual for some people.
You're right. There's definitely a spiritual side to it for some. A lot of ultra runners will tell you achieving and maintaining that flow state is central to the experience.
Okay.
They describe it as this feeling of being totally present in the moment. The outside world fades away, and they're just focused on the rhythm of their stride and the beauty of what's around them.
Like a moving meditation.
Yes, exactly. It's about quieting the mind, letting go of distractions, and finding a sense of peace and clarity, even in the middle of all the physical effort.
Especially in today's world, I can see how that would be so appealing. It's like this sanctuary you find within.
It is. And for some runners, that connection with nature, that inner peace, becomes almost spiritual, like they're connecting with something bigger than themselves.
Wow.
Tapping into some primal instinct, a deep-rooted connection to the earth and to their own bodies.
It's amazing how something so physically demanding can lead to these profound mental and emotional insights.
It is.
It really changes how we think about what's possible, both physically and mentally.
For sure. It reminds us that we are capable of so much more than we often think we are.
Well said. Now, I know we talked about the physical adaptations that make humans capable of endurance running, but can you talk a bit more about the role of those slow-twitch muscle fibers?
Yeah.
You mentioned them earlier.
Oh, yeah, slow-twitch muscle fibers.
I'm curious to hear more about that.
They're really the unsung heroes of endurance sports.
Boy.
They're made for sustained effort.
Right.
They get their energy from aerobic metabolism, meaning they use oxygen to make fuel. They're not as powerful as those fast twitch fibers that are responsible for those explosive movements, like sprinting, but they can keep going and going and going much longer without getting tired.
Like the marathon runners of the muscle world.
Exactly. And humans tend to have more sleepage fibers compared to other animals, which might be another reason why we're so well suited for endurance running.
That's fascinating. It's like our muscles are literally built for the long haul.
Yeah.
But even with these advantages, it still seems like ultra running demands a level of mental toughness that goes way beyond just the physical training.
Oh, absolutely. A lot of ultra runners will tell you that the mental part is the hardest part. It's about pushing through those moments when you doubt yourself, when you're exhausted.
Yeah.
Staying focused and keeping a positive attitude even when your body's telling you to stop.
You mentioned these dark patches earlier.
Right, the dark patches.
Can you elaborate on those a little bit?
Yeah, ultra runners talk about hitting these dark patches during a race. That's where they experience that extreme fatigue, negativity, even despair. It's like this mental wall they have to break through.
So it's a test of willpower just as much as physical endurance.
Absolutely. Getting through those patches, it's a real testament to their mental resilience, their ability to really dig deep and find the strength to keep going.
It's inspiring, but it also raises this important question. If ultramarathons are so grueling, so demanding, why do people do them? What is it about this whole experience that makes people want to do it, to keep coming back?
That's the question, isn't it? I think it gets to the heart of what makes ultra running so compelling. It's not just about crossing a finish line. It's about challenging yourself, seeing what you're really made of, discovering what you're capable of.
It's a journey,
It is.
a way to explore human potential.
Exactly. And it goes beyond just the individual, too. There's this profound sense of community in the ultra running world. These are people who understand the struggles and the triumphs of this sport. They've shared those moments of vulnerability and victory on the trails.
It's like a tribe of like-minded people.
Yes, pushing each other to be their best.
And there's also that connection with nature that a lot of ultra runners talk about.
Absolutely.
Being out in nature, surrounded by all that beauty,
Yeah.
it can be incredibly grounding.
It can. It's like tapping into something primal, something we've lost touch with in our modern world.
Right.
It's a reminder that we're part of something much bigger than ourselves, that we have this ability for endurance and resilience that goes all the way back to our ancestors.
I'm loving this conversation, but I want to make sure we have time to get back to one of our original questions.
Yeah.
Are we, as humans, really meant for these extreme distances? Is it natural for us to be pushing our bodies this far?
That's the big question, right?
Yeah.
And it's one that people are still debating. We looked at the evolutionary evidence, the physical adaptations, that mental strength that makes ultra running possible. But the truth is, there's no easy answer.
I figured.
Like most things in life, it's complicated. We have this amazing ability for endurance, no doubt. But the ultramarathons we see today, they push us far beyond what our ancestors probably faced.
Right.
The distances, the terrain, the conditions, everything's more extreme now.
So it's like we're taking these evolutionary adaptations
Right.
and pushing them to their absolute limits.
All right. Exactly. And while our bodies might be able to do it, whether it's natural or not, well, that's a matter of perspective. There's a difference between being able to do something and whether it's good for you or sustainable over time.
It's a good point. It's like anything else. Too much of a good thing can be harmful.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to be careful with ultra running.
Right.
Listen to your body, respect your limits, even while you're pushing them.
That's good advice for anything in life, really. Pushing yourself is good, but knowing when to stop is important too.
I agree. It's all about finding that balance, that sweet spot where you're challenging yourself, but not putting your well-being at risk.
This has been an eye-opening conversation. It's given me a totally new perspective on ultra running and what it says about human potential.
Me too. It's a fascinating topic that really makes you think about the incredible things our bodies and minds can do.
Well, before we get too philosophical, let's just take a second and reflect on what we've learned. We covered a lot of ground, from the origins of running to the physical and mental demands of ultramarathons. But there's always more to explore, right? Let's continue our deep dive after a quick break. All right, we're back. And I gotta say, this whole conversation has just been mind-blowing. It's really changed how I think about what's humanly possible.
It really is amazing, right? Just to think we might have this ancient connection to running long distances passed down from our ancestors. They needed it to survive.
I know. But today, it means something totally different. It's not about survival anymore. It's about pushing limits, exploring what we're really capable of as humans.
And there seems to be a whole range of reasons people get into ultra running. Some folks are driven by competition.
Right, they want to be the best.
Yeah, they want those faster times to break records. Others are more focused on the personal challenge, that journey of self-discovery, connecting with nature.
So it sounds like there's room for everyone in the ultra running world, no matter what your goals are or what drives you. What I find really interesting is how ultra running can be this form of self-discovery.
Yeah.
Could you tell me more about that?
Absolutely. So many ultra runners say the experience is completely transformative. They talk about facing their fears, breaking through those mental barriers, and finding strength and resilience they never knew they had.
That's powerful. It's kind of like a metaphor for life, isn't it? We all face obstacles, but how we deal with those challenges, how we keep going, that's what shapes us.
I think you're right. And ultra running, it gives you this unique space to explore those qualities. It strips away all those distractions, forces you to confront your limits, and ultimately helps you see what you're truly capable of.
I've heard about runners who have these incredible emotional breakthroughs during these races.
Mm-hmm.
Like the physical challenge opens the door for inner growth.
Yeah, a lot of runners say that. They
Mhm.
talk about reaching this point of exhaustion where they have to tap into a deeper strength, a willpower they didn't even know was there. And it's in that moment they experience this shift, a whole new appreciation for their own strength, for their ability to bounce back.
It's like a wake-up call,
Yeah,
reminding us that we're often much stronger than we think we are. We just got to find the right challenge, the right setting to unlock that potential.
exactly. And for many people, ultra running seems to be that perfect mix of challenge and opportunity.
Okay, we've talked about the demands of ultra running, the risks, the rewards, that transformative power it seems to have.
Yeah,
But I want to go back to something you said earlier, the community aspect.
right.
What makes the ultra running community so unique?
I think it comes down to everyone understanding what it takes to actually be a part of this.
Yeah.
Ultra runners have a deep respect for each other, a recognition of the dedication, the discipline, the mental strength it takes to train for and finish these races.
So it's like this shared experience creates a bond that goes beyond what you usually see in other sports.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. These are people who've pushed themselves to the edge, who face their fears, their doubts head on, and come out stronger on the other side. They've seen each other at their lowest points, and they've celebrated each other's victories. And that shared experience, it creates this strong sense of connection and support.
Listening to you describe it, I'm starting to see why ultra running is so much more than just a sport for a lot of people. It's a whole lifestyle.
It is.
It's a community, a way of living that embraces challenge, resilience, that whole idea of pushing human potential.
I like that. It really is about putting boundaries, exploring the unknown, and discovering those incredible abilities we all have inside us.
And whether we ever actually run an ultramarathon or not, there's so much we can learn from these athletes. It's a reminder that we all have this potential for greatness, this power to overcome obstacles, and that we can achieve things we might have thought were impossible.
Right? It's a powerful message that goes way beyond just ultra running. It speaks to the human spirit, our need to test our limits, and the belief that we can always reach for something more.
Well, I think we covered some amazing ground today, from the science behind it all to the psychology and the incredible human stories that make up the world of ultra running. It's been an amazing journey for me, and I hope our listeners are feeling as inspired and informed as I am.
It's been great diving deep into this topic with you. And who knows, maybe this will encourage some of our listeners to lace up their shoes and give ultra running a try. Or maybe it will inspire them to embrace that spirit of challenge and resilience in their own lives, whatever that looks like for them.
And as always, we encourage you to keep exploring, keep asking questions, keep diving deep into the things that make you curious. Until next time, happy trails, everyone!